open for ventilation, so you have to bear with us there. Right, yeah, I wanted, before we hand over to Steve from Refashion and Zaqiya from Swop It Up, just tell you a little bit about background. I think I've started the first time approaching Refashion maybe 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
A company dealing with second-hand clothing, a really exciting market, very fast growing. And this book, which you've seen outside, wouldn't be the book without the support from people like Refashion, who've supported our project on the 17 development goals to turn them into stories, which is the main part of our book. So we wanted to say thank you very much. Obviously,
thank you.
Copy.
That's excellent.
And the Swop It Up company is literally the spirit of Little Hands, young people getting together and actually doing something. So really excited to have you both here. And
thank you.
Thank you very much. Guess we should start off with introductions. So, hi, my name is Zaqiya, and I am the founder, 18-year-old founder of Swop It Up. And essentially what Swop It Up is a clothing exchange scheme that happens in secondary schools to educate young people on the issues of fast fashion and to also provide a platform to act on and to be the solution against it.
Very good. My name's Steve. I own a business called Refashion. Refashion is second-hand surplus product where we're encouraging people to think second-hand first. That's our primary goal. We this year will sell around 150,000 second-hand products to people. We're creating awareness in a general market. We're all mainstream. So some of the bigger brands have been focused on sustainability for a number of years now, but they only touch maybe 1 to 5% of the population. So our goal is, to demonstrate that actually fast fashion, it can be durable. It might not be desirable for very long, but it could be to someone else. So that's our whole kind of raison d'etre of what we do. Zaqiya was going to interview me today, but when I spoke to her on the phone the other day, actually what she's doing is probably more interesting than what we're actually doing. So I think we should probably work it both ways. It's very interesting.
So I am going to do a little bit of interview with you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So my first question was about how did you get involved? Like, how did you learn about fast fashion, and where did Refashion start from?
Okay, so I have no fashion background, none, as you can probably tell from my threads today. I've had a number of businesses for well over a decade now, and we've always worked with charities in those businesses. So we've raised maybe 50-60 million for good causes over that period of time. We sold products through our shops, through big retailers like Morrison's and Poundland and others. Maybe 5 years ago, one of the charities we worked with, which was a breast cancer charity, Breast Cancer Care, which subsequently changed to Breast Cancer Now, asked us how we could help them make more income. So we said they should open shops. We'd done shops before. The charity shop market's very interesting. There's around 10,000 of them. They sell around £1 billion worth of secondhand clothing a year, and then £500 million of knickknacks and other bits and pieces, and they make really good margin, like 19%. It's very good for a retail. So we said they should do that. They wanted to, but they didn't have any money and didn't know how to do it. So I opened 3 shops. We got 3 charity shops. We're not a charity. We make no money off of that. But it came really clear quite quickly that the amount of good quality product we get in, we couldn't sell through bricks and mortar. There was too many limitations. Not enough people looking at this product. So then we were selling on the residual stock to recyclers, which was being shipped abroad for a fraction of the value. And who knows what was happening to it. Yeah. So it doesn't sit too well with the conscience to do that. And so we put it online, and that's how Refashion was born in 2018.
Wow.
And we shoved it online and saw what happened, really. Did anyone would people donate? Would people buy? In hey presto, they did. So.
And I think that's really inspirational, seeing how we have seen the online market increase anyway. So to then take charity shops off of, as well as being on the high street, but taking it off the high street as well and taking it online, and showing that we can still have slow fashion being online, because a lot of fast fashion is online. So you have to be competing with that constantly.
Yeah.
And I think there's other good models such as like Depop and eBay still as like good models showing secondhand clothing online. But I think it's a really good idea because there is that surplus from charity shops that is still very much wearable clothing that online is a really good space to kind of be taking it to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, unfortunately, in the charity world, about 500 million products are still going into our own landfill each year. There's a quarter of a billion products that are being sent abroad, getting some use, unquestionably, but a whole host of it not. And I think the brands and the retailers are being called upon to do a bit more in terms of provenance and to make sure that that's looked after for a little bit longer. And they're going with it. I don't think they're pushing against it.
Yeah, and that's like really good to see because it does allow for this to continue to blossom.
Yes.
And so what we've been doing is, because we know that charity shops are very much tailored to adults and then also very young children, is that there isn't really that market for teenagers. And so I set up Swop It Up when I was 15, mainly from the position of going, I like shopping in charity shops, but there isn't anything that fits me. And so setting up Swop It Up was just a way of going, well, now I can get pre-loved clothes and it's for everyone in my age group, and it's really handy because it's just at school.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really good us talking today. We're not competing with each other because we've got completely different markets. Because obviously you're looking more adult and then I'm tailoring mine towards teenagers. And I think that's a really good demonstration of like working together for the same goal.
Yeah, I think competition is a good thing, in honesty. I think what we're trying to do is make the cake bigger. So we don't want to fight against each other to keep it as small as it has. Our first job is about awareness. The more we talk about this, the more we ask people to do things, the more you talk to that generation, the more that becomes a behavior that they take through to the next generation. And so the cake will grow. There'll be plenty of room for lots of us. We won't be competing, and people will like to swap, and people will like to buy, and people will like to sell. And there's going to be some brilliant models coming out of this because there is going to be a market for it. There's unquestionably a market for it. Yeah.
And what I think is really nice about your model is that you just take in the clothes and you yourselves photograph them, don't you? Whereas if you're putting something on Depop, you might get money for it, but it is a bit of a hassle having to take a photo of it, upload it and write the description and everything.
Yeah.
And so you can just donate the clothes and then you handle all of that. And I think that it's a different way of looking at it, and it does take off that pressure from the individual, and so it makes it easy for you to not just throw something in landfill because it's too much bother to have to upload it online.
Yeah. The way our business works is very kind of millennial. It's got its own direction. We've just followed it really. But effectively, someone through Insta or Facebook or through our website can order a bag for free. It comes to them. It's quite sexy. It's about this big, holds maybe 10, 12 products. And they literally take it to one of 7,000 depots across the country where you would take your normal online returns, hand it to the chap, he scans it, and it just comes back to us. It's very, very simple. It's just a normal process that's taken up. Then we get it in, we open the bags, we sort the product. Usually 70% of it's very good quality that we're able to sell on and get people to use it as a second life. The 30% that we can't sell, we sort into, well, some of it, about 10% goes into our charity shops, because when you can look and feel it, you can make a decision whether that blemish is okay and acceptable to you. When it's online, it's a bit more difficult to, we don't want to be having product going backwards and forwards, because then you've got a non-sustainable transport issue. So, so about 10% will go to the charity shops, and then the rest of it we stick in 2 kilo rag bags. They're just product that some people actually buy them and wear, and other people are creating new stuff out of it. So we have a growing upcycle community, probably a bunch of people that will end up in these kind of places that are making couture items out of secondhand unwanted stuff. So you put a Zara pair of shorts with a Burberry dress, and you create your own Zarberry. Do you know what I mean? And it's tremendous. It's unbelievable actually what some people are creating. And we've just brought in a remake site onto our site where we're not charging, but we're allowing these upcyclers to go and sell their stuff, because there's some genius stuff going on out there. They just don't necessarily have a platform to be able to do anything with it. And we're really into grassroots. We work with Nottingham Trent University this year on one of their courses. We're speaking to London College of Fashion at the University of Arts at the moment about a 3-year piece that we're going to do with them. Like I've told you, I will find a way of supporting you. I think when I was listening, you got to hear and understand a 15-year-old individual that can be bothered with the world of social media going on at the moment, that can be bothered to engage with schools, to create products, to find cards and stuff that's made out of recyclable, decompostable paper and ink that's made of vegetable. Most kids can't be bothered to do that, right? I don't mean to call you a kid neither, but it's pretty impressive, right? And we've got to find ways of supporting these ideas and these people that are going to be leading next generation. So I told you this, my hat completely goes off to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You should tell these people a bit more about what you're doing and how you're engaging with these schools, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So Swop It Up has been running before COVID in 10 schools in London. And then the aim over the next couple of years is to make it a national project. So it's running in pretty much every school in the country. And the way it works is that students will bring in their clothes and then they exchange their clothes for tokens, and then those tokens can then be exchanged for other clothes involved in the swap. And what we have is a sheet that's up that says that you've got how much each token or how much tokens can get. So a t-shirt is worth 2 tokens, a coat is worth 10 tokens, for example. We're actually supporting one of the swaps here today, and so it's just in the library over there. So you can drop off any clothes that you might have brought, and then you can go have a look and swap your tokens for other clothes. And if you haven't brought any clothes, that's absolutely fine. We have got a little bit of donations going on, so we'll switch over to donations later in the afternoon. But the way it works in schools is it's very much youth-led. So we have got support, we've got buy-in from teachers to make sure that they're all happy with everything running. But then the students are the ones that are leading it. They're the ones that are making sure that they've got the room set up, that they've got someone manning the desk, making sure that they're giving out the tokens to the correct tokens to the right people, and then also on the other side of things, because we have a drop to swap week, so it's done in 2 separate weeks where you bring in your clothes one week, get tokens, and then the following week you swap your tokens for clothes. And that's how we've been doing it prior to COVID. But then post-COVID, we are going to be developing an app over the summer, which is then going to allow us to do it more digitally, and it will reduce the amount of people in a room together so that we can have that sort of COVID restriction. And it will also mean that schools can do it more continuously throughout the year rather than just once a term swaps. And so that's essentially how it's been running as swaps at the moment. But we have, because of COVID, had to think of something else to do because schools haven't been open to doing swaps at the moment. So what we have been doing is we've launched a creators program, which is all about young people educating other young people on environmental topics with a focus on fast fashion. And we do this through art pieces, through blog pieces, through making Instagram graphics, through videos, songs, whatever they want to do. We've got about 100 creators, and we just push it all out on our website, on our social media, wherever we can. Art pieces get turned into postcards. We've got on the desk as you come in some postcards that you can buy for, I believe they're about £3, and then you can also get them framed. And so you can have them as a little nice art piece on your desk, or you can send it as a postcard to someone. And so it's just been a really nice way of exploring creativity through, or environmentalism through creativity, and getting young people to be the ones that are very much leading and showing other young people what they can specifically be doing to change their habits, because it's all about individual change, which will help systematic change. They go hand in hand, and I'm a true believer of that.
Pretty impressive, right? and they've created their own website, they've coded their own website, you've done the whole 9 yards together. What's your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge at the beginning was getting sort of the awareness and the understanding from people that secondhand clothes aren't dirty, that they are actually a perfectly good perfectly well to like wear again. And most young people have only worn their clothes a couple of times because they've usually grown out of it, especially because a lot of us wear school uniform. And so you only wear clothes at the weekend, and then you've got more clothes in your wardrobe than you actually can get through in that time. And obviously, as young people, we're still evolving our sense of style and self-expression. And so it's just a really nice opportunity for you to sustainably experiment with that and to sustainably get clothes and experiment with style and also get stuff in the right size for you. And especially with this sort of throwaway culture that we have had developed over the last kind of 20 years, it's a really good way of people still being able to refresh their wardrobe. We do want to see people wearing clothes for longer, but also we know that young people are growing out of their clothes. They are growing in terms of their sense of style. So it does still allow that opportunity, and it's financially viable because it doesn't cost anything to do. You just bring in the clothes that you don't wear anymore to get clothes that you will wear, and then you can continuously do this throughout secondary school.
So I've got a 16-year-old daughter. She's very good to tell me how the world should work and preach what she believes in. And these beliefs are ultra strong. Can't remember having such strong beliefs when I was that age, that's for sure. However, there's still a disconnect between, this whole area of saving the planet. She will talk about that and be quite vociferous on it. However, how you actually do anything about it is quite tough. What do I do? How do I, bar plant a tree? What do I do? And I think things like this start to allow the reality of what you're able to do to make a difference. And that's where the challenge comes to that generation, to say, come on, you can put your money where your mouth is. Get on and do it.
Exactly.
Get in the schools. Let the schools should be supporting you.
You don't even need to put your money where your mouth is because it doesn't cost anything.
Exactly. It's just, it's a good avenue to get people into knowing what it is that they can do to make a difference. We do something similar in our, we deal with a lot of retailers. I don't see us as competitors to first-hand retailers, the likes of, ASOS or Next, New Look, whoever it may be, because they have the same problem. They're looking for answers to all of this stuff that isn't core to what they do, which is sell first-hand product. That will always be the case. There is billions of product that gets sold every year. It will continue to be that way. But they need solutions themselves. So, we're talking to a retailer at the moment saying, listen, our belief is it should start from within. It's very difficult to say to your customers, you should be doing things if you're not doing them as a business. So we said, listen, this retailer's got 8,000 staff. They offer them 40% discount on their product, which is brilliant because they want them wearing their stuff while they're in stores and selling it. We're saying twice a year, you want your staff to be buying the new stuff. What are they doing with the old stuff? Let's get us to take it in. Let's communicate to them what we can do with this product. And it'd be brilliant if we could track it and tell them what happened to it. And then, that's literally one retailer might be 50,000 items twice a year. And it starts to keep big chunks of this out. And then that's a tangible way of people being able to get involved in this whole area, understand what we're trying to do and the benefits that it has. And then more importantly, what we haven't yet done, nobody's done it, is to be able to say, look, by handing me this t-shirt and me being able to pass it on to someone else, what does that do? What's the impact? And the mathematicians globally are trying to agree what that is at the moment. And that, they're working hard on it.
It's so complex because it's not just the carbon emissions from actually manufacturing the product, but it's also the water consumption to grow the materials in the first place. It's the toxins and the chemicals from the dyes that make their way into the water streams. It's a really complex thing to try and calculate. Hugely
complex, though it needs to be done. But logic still says if you use that product for longer, it's going to have a benefit. So we know that. But we also do know some facts around things. I don't know if you know that fashion is the second largest polluter in the world. How mad's that after gas and oil? Who would have thought it, right? To make a single pair of jeans, the water consumption on that is equivalent to around one human being 7 years of water in the Western world. 7 years of drinking water, one pair of jeans, just to be able to wash the cottons through. It's such it's a material that drinks so much water just to grow. Then you got to create the dyes they go into there. It's just a nuts place to be. So, slowly but surely, although it can't be too slow because we're running out of time.
We're running out of time. We're on a bit of a time scale pressure.
Yeah. It's interesting times, I think, for all.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the other things when you're saying like first-hand retailers is that we're seeing quite a lot of them bringing out like their sustainable brand, their circular line. But the thing is, you have to also look at what percentage of their overall line is actually that sustainable thing that they're saying, and then looking at what do those words actually mean. They don't actually necessarily always mean something specific, and they can kind of be going, oh yes, we're going to slap that label on something, and then it encourages people going, oh yes, that's good for the environment, I'm going to buy that. And it doesn't always hold that same value that just buying something secondhand is just kind of the culture that we need to start adopting more. Because we do have enough clothes, they will last, although we have got a problem with planned obsolescence, which is where it's being designed out, where they will break more easily. But the rate at which we're just throwing away our clothes is faster than that planned obsolescence is already being designed in, and so we can be wearing the clothes for much longer than we are, and that's what we need to be continuing to do. And then clothes that are being designed need to be designed without that planned obsolescence. They need to be designed to last, and that is something that is going to be more sustainable, is anything that we just wear for longer.
Planned obsolescence, I'm going to go look that one up. I think I get where it's going, but yeah, I mean, on that, we were talking to an organisation on Friday that it started in destroying confidential documentation. But what they're actually doing at the moment is they're picking apart materials. So you will get to a point where a product won't be used by pretty much anyone anywhere in the world. What they are able to do now is they're picking it apart effectively to break it back down into its fibers. They can do a really good job on 100% of one material, so 100% cotton, 100% wool. They can break it apart. They can send it to their partners who are rebuilding those fibers back up again to be made into something else. The stuff that's which might be mixed, so half polyester, half cotton kind of thing, they're able to break that apart, and they're finding ways to put them into things like roads now. So roads, because it's porous, you can put it into the road framework, and it's being reutilized in that fashion. And then and 85% of that stuff is getting used for one of those two categories. The last 15%, that's absolutely I don't know what's wrong with that. It must be pretty bleak, obviously, because it can't go into roads. They're creating energy out of it. It's non-toxic steam energy that they're creating out of this product. So there's some clever stuff going on out there at the moment, and the whole idea is to just use what we got time and time again until it effectively disintegrates, and then it can't be used. I think we're still a ways off. I think the government need to get involved in that. They're putting no money into it because they make taxation out of landfill. There's a bit of a counter argument on that. But I get a genuine sense everybody wants to do their bit, and the government will push the retailers, the retailers will push government, and it will, and you lot will all push a lot of us, and yeah, we'll hopefully get where we're going.
Yeah, I think it definitely needs to be everyone working together. So my way of looking at it is I need to do what I possibly can do, and what I can do is more than one person, but maybe not as much as another person. And then corporations can do much more than any individual can, but that doesn't stop individuals from being able to do what they can do. And it's not about doing everything all at once. It's about doing things that you can do at that time and what you have the capacity for, because sustainability isn't just about environmental sustainability, it's also about economic and social sustainability. And you have to make sure, you have to prioritize yourself, make sure that you have got enough money to have the means to take on this environmentally sustainable lifestyle, but also it's not going to damage your life socially or other people's lives socially. And so those are all things that you need to take into consideration for it to be truly sustainable, is can I sustain this financially, and can I sustain this socially as well as environmentally? And so you can just adopt things one at a time and put them into your lifestyle. And so those are things that individuals need to be doing. And my way of looking at it is going, have I done everything that I can do with the capacity that I have to do those things at the moment? And if the answer is yes, and I feel good about myself. If the answer is no, I'm like, okay, right, what else can I do? And I try my best to adopt that, and I try my best to convince my family to do that. And that the way I will look and not have the regret of going, I could have done more, is by just doing what I know I have the capacity to do. And I think that's what everyone needs to adopt, is it's not about doing everything, it's about doing what you have the capacity to do. And then we aren't going to look back and regret it, because we knew we did everything we possibly could.
Wow. Can't argue with that. Come on with that future politician, you think, potentially. Have you guys got any questions? It feels like we're talking at you a little bit. What are your thoughts in this whole area?
Yeah, I've got a question. And you obviously work at schools.
Yes.
From your side, what support can the schools give to you to branch out more?
So we ask schools, we don't ask them to pay anything initially, and so it's absolutely free for schools to take on the project, but we do ask them to fundraise and we have a fundraising blueprint for them, and they have about 6 different things that they can do, and that includes doing a sort of dress down day, so a non-uniform day, but specifically where students wear pre-loved clothes, and then in their form time you have to write a story about where the clothes come from. Was it from an older sibling? Did it come from a swap? Did it come from a charity shop? Another one is around a bake sale, but is it a vegan bake sale? Is it a plastic-free bake sale? And so looking at the classic sort of fundraising things that schools would do for charities, but looking at it with an environmental twist. And so we've got about 6 ideas that we've written down, and we're asking schools, once they've done a swap, is to go out to 2 more schools to encourage them to do the same, but then to also fundraise for us, and then that helps us continue and make sure we have the manpower to keep it going. At the moment, we are just kind of constantly looking for funding, and funding is quite a difficult thing to find. But we're still going, and going into schools and asking them to fundraise will just give us kind of that breathing space, especially as we get more schools on board, and the more fundraising, it means that more schools that we can get on board, so it's kind of this sort of snowballing effect that it can have.
And the second part of my question is, what do you think schools should do more?
In terms of
Say a school
for environmental in total, I think that there needs to be a much bigger focus on environmental education in schools, and I think that should also come from the government. I've been working with another organisation called Teach the Future, which is all about campaigning for climate education, and they're specifically targeting the government, but also putting together sort of resources and other campaigns around getting environmental education into schools, so schools can adopt those things individually, but if it comes from the government, it means more widespread, obviously. So I have been working with them on something, but we as Swop also, when schools sign up, is we have got a schools portal which includes sort of lesson plans, and those are kind of constantly being added to, and those are cross-curricular, so we can't just have environmental education in geography and science. It has to be something that appeals to everyone. So you will have people who are interested in history, you'll have people who are interested in English. Every single subject is going to appeal to someone in some way. And so it's also going to affect everyone's lives. You have to remember that climate change is going to affect everyone. And so we all deserve the knowledge and deserve the ability to kind of fight climate change from whatever position that we're in, and we're all going to be working in different areas, but we're all going to be affected. And so every part of the curriculum needs to be covering climate change, because every part of the curriculum is going to be affected ultimately.
I see the answer to that question probably a little more commercially, in that to make something stick, you've got to do it regularly, not just one-offs once a year. And to embrace it, to get it into schools and be part of their curriculum, I'll be saying schools, do your house point system, whereby, because they all do that, right? So you make it tangible. At the end of that, X amount of house points come for X amount of credits. It's something tangible people can get at the end of this. You've obviously got to get a pipeline of product in. That's where the swap piece comes into it. But I think, you need to be pushing schools to do something ongoing and more. If you can, obviously you need support to do that as well.
Which is why we're doing like the swaps on the app more consistently throughout the year. Is the idea of, instead of just like once a term, is that it is a continuous thing that we're kind of planning on doing going forward from September.
Yeah, it's a good question. How do you get them to tangibly do something rather than paying lip service to it? Because they've got a bunch of stuff going on themselves, don't they? That they're gonna. Yeah, you have a challenge. There you go. Something to keep you going for the next 10 years or so. Are there any other questions? Yes.
But a lot of students don't really, after like the unit is done, they don't really like go further with it. How do you think I didn't think schools should do it so that like the students can take like those projects and do. Are you talking about like specifically like their brainstorming projects that they want to start, and then you kind of have the brainstorm of it and it never goes anywhere, sort of thing, or? Like, when they do the projects, a lot of students, because that's like they have to do it. It's not like so that like they after once it's like done, they don't really continue doing it. I think one thing that we kind of miss out a lot is exactly what the effect of climate change is going to have on us as individuals. I think it seems still this very distant thing. Some people are already being affected by climate change, obviously, but not so much in the UK. We are starting to see the repercussions of it, but not in a way that necessarily affects our daily life. And I think that it needs to hit home more. It needs to, the education that we have to have has to be slightly scary. It can't be too scary that we have sort of the eco-anxiety that we are starting to face, feeling hopeless, but to be able to actually want to create change is you have to know what we're trying to stop in the first place. And I think that's something that needs to be kind of brought into schools more, is exactly what are the threats that we as individuals are going to face, and not so much talking about it as something that is affecting other people. And I think we talk about it a lot as something that affects other people, but we know that we're going to probably have a limit on the amount of water that we can drink every day. We're going to potentially need to be wearing masks, not because of COVID, but because of air pollution. And so those sorts of things are just things like we need to be just conscious of what's going to affect us. And I think that should hopefully help people want to actually create change. I think another difficulty is it being in school and you're kind of having this mentality of you have to keep appearances up with your friends, and you might be interested in it but you can't show that you're interested in it. And I was actually in my old school doing talks to year 10s this past week, and you could tell that there was this kind of, there were some people who were interested and some people who I think were just keeping up for appearance sake, that they weren't interested. And I feel like there needs to be some sort of change just generally to the education system to make students feel more respected in schools, so that they respect the education that they're getting. I think there's a lot of what's going on in schools is going, you have to respect the teacher, but not so much the teacher going, I'm going to respect you, and it's a two-way street. And I think that's something that we need to explore more, and that's how we're going to get more students to actually want to learn, because they feel respected, and so they're willing to respect the education that they're getting. That's something that we need to explore more, and that's how we're going to get more students to actually want to learn, because they feel respected, and so they're willing to respect the education that they're getting.
I think there might be a need for a GCSE in environmental.
I think it needs to be more readily available.
Climate change or a group of projects like that. I think it might be interesting. I would love to have done that. Is there really already? Is there really?
I think it needs to be more readily available. But it's not really available.
What's it called?
Yeah, the problem with it is that not every school offers it. That's the issue. And I don't think many schools realise that they can offer it, and there's not enough teachers that are able to teach it. And that's one of the reasons why there's not. The issue. That could change over time, exactly. I don't think many schools realise that they can offer it, and there's not enough teachers that are able to teach it, and that's one of the reasons why there's not.
But that could change over time.
That could change over time.
If I can jump in there is the thought that if you introduce a separate subject on it, then yet again sustainability is seen as something separate.
Yeah.
So we've been discussing it at our school, whether to do it or not, and there are arguments for and against it. But if we want to say sustainability is that broad framework inclusive, it needs to be in every subject, because every subject has a relation. Then you kind of almost setting a barrier, because then the teachers, and I know what I'm talking about because that's the constant argument. Oh, she's the sustainability coordinator at our school. That's her job to do sustainability at the school, but how do you then get the individual teacher to say it's everyone's responsibility, because we're all in the same boat. So there is, I think it's really interesting also as a symbolic thing to say we're taking it seriously, but there is a sort of unintended consequence that
I think you could potentially have it as a subject itself but then
Could you
also
maybe
making sure it's
through
also
something like
cross-curricular.
environmentalism and
And
ethics
the issue
something
as well
else?
is that there's a lack of teacher
I don't know.
training around climate change and environmentalism and knowing what exactly they need to do, and that teachers just don't feel confident to teach it. And so that is, we just need more teacher training on that, and that means that teachers will kind of be bringing it up. The teachers who do know it do seem to bring it up because they are aware that it is something that needs to be covered. But there's not enough teachers that do have that training. So this has kind of gone into an education ramble now. But yeah, I think you could potentially have that one subject because there are definitely people who are interested in that and want to kind of be focusing on sustainability, but that doesn't mean that we can't include it across the curriculum, because again, everyone's going to be affected by it, so everyone should be able to learn about it. But also to potentially also have the set subject that you can just learn that if you want to. But I think it would have to be both. It couldn't be one or the other.
I think knowledge of the impending issue around climate change and all that is becoming more prevalent. I think the issue really comes down to, well, but what can I do myself, and what's the impact of what I do? And we're struggling to define that still, and that's why people aren't doing anything. It's trying to find those ways, it's trying to understand, and that's, we're struggling to your point, still. When you're coming out of school and you've done your project, it's kind of like anything. You can't blame people for not doing anything post that point, because what is it I'm supposed to do? And if you could say to people, you've got a choice of 5 things, people will pick them out, work something that fits their lifestyle and do it, knowing that actually it made this difference. We're not at that point, unfortunately, at the moment. And people pick them out, education next phase has to be their lifestyle and do it, knowing that actually make a difference.
What we're doing with our creator program is very much trying to, as well as presenting a problem, is always presenting a solution, because we know that climate anxiety is very prevalent amongst young people, and constantly being told this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. It's like, this is overwhelming, I can't do anything about this. Why are you telling me this problem if I can't do anything about it? And so to be able to go, this is a problem, but here's also the solution to that problem, something you can act on right now. That is a way to overcome that eco-anxiety. It's a way to just have that action plan that people can actually take. And even if it's just going, okay, so this is a problem, we don't necessarily know what the solutions are yet, but these are the things that are starting to come out. These are the things that we're looking out for. These are things that you should keep your eye on. So it kind of just relaxes that eco-anxiety, because there are still things where it's just like, there's not really the technology for it yet, or it's not efficient enough technology yet, but it's still better than nothing. And so to kind of be aware of what the problems are, but also what solutions there are as well, is a very, very important thing, because you can't act if you don't know what you need to act on.
We've just had a report back. There's a government body called WRAP, Waste Recycling. Can't remember the other 2 bits, but it's the government kind of sponsored piece. And then last year they had a part of that organisation called SCAP, and they're leading the way. They have a thing at the moment called Textile 2030. They're getting brands, retailers, and everybody to sign into this, to commit to providing data, to knowing what they're doing, how much consumption is going on. And it's broken down into waste, energy, and water, CO2, water, energy, and CO2. And they've just I provide them with lengths of data, and they've just given me back our data, and it reads like minus 24,000 on CO2, minus 78 on something else. But I'm like, well, what's that mean? Is that good? So I phoned them and said, can you help me out with this? A, how did you get to these numbers? And B, what do they mean in the context of stuff? Because no point me retrospectively 6 months after my year end saying to everyone, look, we've done this, because they're all going to go, right, so what does that mean? And no one knows. But, what's the value of that? How did you calculate that? And what's the value? So I can go out to someone when they buy a secondhand t-shirt from me and say, CO2 -3, that's the equivalent of whatever. And that's the way you move forward on this stuff. So that, they're moving to the next phase, but still not there, because we're not telling people up front what the hell that means. So sorry, they're moving to the next phase, but still not there, because we're not telling people up front what the hell that means. So 100%. Why not? Everybody, there is calculations that are going on I mean, I can look in this here, and it'll tell you that it's off polyester and off cotton. So therefore, you should be able to put those against it, right? Calculations that are going on. I mean, I can look in this here, and it'll tell you that it's off polyester and off cotton. So therefore, you should be able to put those against it, right?
Yeah, well, when I went to college, they shut the textile course the year before, so it wasn't even a choice for my year and the years after to even learn basics.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real shame. And it's just came down to numbers, and someone in the office went, "Oh, we haven't got 100 to run textiles this year." So they got crossed, and so everyone was shoved into either art or they had drama or some other subject. And I think it was a real shame.
Yeah.
Hand skills are being lost, and the value of hand skills isn't appreciated. And when you bring a piece of something you make it. I am a maker.
But listen, on our site, on our refashion site, have a look. We have a remake section, and you can see some of the stuff people are. They're selling their stuff they've made, and you know, art's it's subjective, right? It's, you know, people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. That's just part of the joy of it. So go and have a look what people the joy of it. So go and have a look what people
like. You should be able to sell that for around £3,000.
You know, that's not where we're selling things. Let me tell you that much. And you know, people are creating. Let me tell you that much. Someone's creating stuff out of like IKEA bags, and it's some genius stuff going on. And if it interests you, you should have a look and see. There is an avenue there for you if you want to do stuff like that. There is an avenue there for you if you want to do stuff like that.
Yeah. It's not a question. It's just a situation. Recently, when I visited my niece, who's now 10. She was having this absolute anxiety about, I think there'd been maybe a talk at school about environmental issues and everything, and she couldn't sleep. She was so anxious. And we went to we're getting ready for the next term to go back to school after the summer. And she didn't want to have a new pair of shoes because she was so worried about the impact of the environment. And so we had to take, well, you know, the partner's pair of shoes and quite well, but of course she's 10. She'll grow out of them quite soon. And then I remember Doris with her at night, and she still couldn't sleep. And she said, "I don't know what to do, I can't sleep." Really aanxious about all this environmental stuff. And I said, "What you have to do is you have to calm yourself. Just think about what you've been saying. Just think about tomorrow and what you can do to be careful." But how can you comfort these youngsters without them kind of, you know, really kind of losing it?
I think finding an avenue to get that out of them and to go, I am doing everything I can possibly do, and going, well, in that capacity, those shoes aren't something that you can't just keep the same shoes because you've grown out of them. You don't have the capacity to wear those shoes. It's unsustainable because your feet are growing, but are they still wearable for someone else? Can you give them to a charity shop? Can you take them to a sort of a scheme where they take them? Can you yourself get second-hand shoes? Especially if your feet are growing. I know that my feet grew so much. I was like out of shoes like every 2 weeks because my feet just didn't fit in shoes. And so to be able to get second-hand shoes is just like, well, also I know it's going to be cheaper, and I know that it's going to have less of an impact on the environment. So doing what you know you can. But then also to sign up to schemes like Little Hands, like Swop It Up, and to get that creative outlet and to do, yeah, I am doing something, and not only am I doing something myself, but I'm also educating other young people, and that's what the whole point of Swop It Up is. It's young people that are educating other young people, it's young people that are putting out these swaps so that other young people can reduce their carbon footprint. It's all about young people helping young people.
Yeah, and I suppose that's one way of focusing on opportunities to talk about pushing us fashion. You have noticed that when living amongst tights making into, things for the winter and things like that, so that's really positive. I mean, we have it all around us, like using compost, recycling, house containers, but fashion.
Yeah, definitely. Just do something, do what you can is basically my message is, if you're feeling anxious about it, is you won't regret it if you know you've done everything you possibly can.
Yeah, it's knowing what your avenue is. That's where the stress comes from, not knowing what I can do to make a difference. So, they're introduced to Swop it up. It's just a very simple way of dealing with the situation.
I recommend doing an audit at home of like the main thing that you throw away. I know that a couple of years ago for us it was sparkling water, like plastic bottles, because my dad just drank so much sparkling water. I didn't like sparkling water. So we were like, okay, what do we do about this? And we found SodaStream, and so now we just have like 5 refillable water bottles that we just refill, and instead of going through like 12 bottles of water, because my dad drinks a lot of water. So it's just kind of auditing what is the thing I throw away most at home, and then going, okay, what's another thing, and looking at different parts of your house. So the kitchen, maybe you get through something more quickly. There's a lot in the bathroom that you can actually change. So shampoo bars, pretty much any soap you can get in a bar form. Bamboo toothbrushes is a very obvious one. Toothpaste tablets, something that I've recently just started. If like skincare, looking at plastic-free skincare, looking at vegan skincare, just thinking, what is a part of my life that I can change? I say this a lot to young people about they have control more so over their individual items rather than family items. So what can they change about perhaps their makeup or their skincare, things that they personally use, and then also to convince parents and be like, one of the things I did was I had a shampoo bar, I left it on the side of the sink and I hid the bottle of shampoo, and then now my dad is using the shampoo bar. My mum was also on board with the shampoo bar idea, and so now we all just use shampoo bars. So it's just little things like that, just going like, I'm going to hide the shampoo bottle, or you only use that thing.
I'm going to get on to it. Yeah, that's really positive, thank you.
Anyone else got any questions?
I've got just a quick
Anyone else got any
reflection,
questions?
if you like.
I've got just a quick reflection, if you like. You know,
see the value of innovation.
I sort of see the value of innovation that you're bringing. And I know we're talking about clothes today, but I could easily see how when there's a clothes swap at the school, let's say you had a half an hour before or after where the participants could sit down rather like this, and you could discuss what innovative ideas they may have. And someone who likes books very much might just say, well, look, it's fantastic what you're doing, I want to do this with books. So I think there's a kind of a way of inspiring others like that, you know, and that's one thing. And the other thing, you know, Department of Education and MPs and councillors, if you can keep at them as much as possible, they all want votes, they all want to be seen to be communicating with the community. And you know, the more you kind of send them your information about what you're doing and so on, maybe would they like to come along? They want then a photo in the local paper to be seen to be engaging in the local activities, and they might just come along and you know, if there's an election coming up, they probably will come along for the vote sort of thing. So I think there's 2 areas there where I think you've already mentioned about the politics connections, but you know, possibly that could be. I don't know how much you're going into that. Maybe you haven't got time, but you could delegate it to a fellow student who maybe wanting to study politics or something, so they get the experience about how you don't get any replies from any politicians, as though they're not there, you know. But anyway, that's just a couple of reflections. You know, you're giving out so much positivity about how we can change the status quo, if that's the right word. And it, as I say, it extends to a much broader range of areas of our life.
One of the ideas, so you suggested around books specifically, we want to kind of expand over to universities as well, because then we also can get clothes coming down from universities into secondary schools, which kind of then meets the 6th formers and the year 11s, because what happens is they bring in a lot of clothes and then they go, oh, there's nothing that fits me. So we want to kind of bring it in from universities, but then also open up the university swaps to be things like textbooks, because we know they're expensive, and like household items that they will potentially be needing, like pots and pans that they just need for their accommodation and stuff, because it's their accommodation often isn't furnished out and they need these sorts of things. So to be able to have a scheme where they can swap clothes for pots and pans, or vice versa, or just books for pots and pans and what have you. So to bring in, we're definitely looking at when we develop it as a university scheme, to look at that, and then potentially also for in secondary schools, and then obviously we want to listen to like what the students want and how we can get them to get more involved. And so if we're very flexible around what specifically the students and what the school want to do, and so it is, because it is up to them to run it, they ultimately can, we kind of go, here's the framework, and they can change it to whatever kind of suits them, because we're not like going round to every single one of them and being like, we're making sure it's running the way we want it to run. We want it to run the way they want it to run, but we just kind of provide the framework. We've got the materials, we have the posters, we have everything that they need, and they can just expand from there.
I like the idea of getting the politicians involved.
I like the idea of
I really do.
getting the politicians involved.
We're planning on opening another charity shop in September in the Nottingham area.
Another charity shop
And it's going to have, the first time we're going to put an upcycle lab in there. So it's going to be like half charity shop, half upcycle lab. So we work with Nottingham Trent students this year and their design department. We've got their architecture, design people to look at the sustainable design. They're not great at the moment, but the thing is, we're trying to get the whole college to do this so that when we stick in Nottingham, we hope that what they'll do is they'll come and use the facilities for free. There'll be cutting tables, mannequins, so we can use all the stuff we can't sell effectively, gets repurposed. They can come and use it for free, but we're hoping they'll then bring people into the community and show them repair techniques, show them creative techniques, and almost own that element of it. But the charity shop piece allows us to pay for that other piece that's doing a community-based thing. But I thought quite a bit about hooking a politician in from Nottingham, because once you do that, if they take it on board, that's where the press is going to come from. That's where the community gets to hear about what you're doing. So I definitely think they've got a place to play on all this. And there are some of them savvy enough to know this is a burning topic that could politically, if they take a stance on it, help them out as well. And, you know, it has to do that, otherwise they won't get engaged. But it is a good idea. Definitely, and that would work for the schools. I think if there's a politician that could kind of see the future on this one, could help out no end in terms of their influence on those schools. So, you know, well, they all should be doing their bit, right? The Green Party are the ones that you might be pushing on the door a little easier to, but there's no reason that the current party shouldn't. There'll be enough in there that are smart enough to know this could be a good thing to hook themselves onto, a good community-based interest for them to, you know, do something with that's not going to take that much effort really on their part, because you've got people doing it for you.
We're going to start wrapping up. We've got to present to the next book as well. But any last questions before we have a little break?
Have you both got
Yes,
websites?
Re-fashion.
One called Refashion.
And
Yes,
Swop
Re-fashion.
Also, I'm going to do a social media push. So Swop It Up on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. And then we've also recently launched a podcast, which two of our creators are hosting that. They're 14 and 15, and they're under 15-minute long podcasts every other week. And they're just talking about different environmental issues, and again, going down the solution, problem, solution kind of framework of it. We've had a look at greenwashing, consumerism, fast fashion, deforestation, rainbow washing, and rainbow washing.
Honestly,
I mean, I don't do that. It's up to the volunteers to do. But it's just been really nice to see this creativity, and they want to do as much as they can.
So we've got 30,000 people on our Instagram, so I'm more than happy to put it out on there as well. Honestly, well done. Thank you all.
Thank you.